Dictatorship of Relativism. By James P. Pierce. Pope Benedict XVI's phrase, the dictatorship of relativism, offers a framework for understanding the perceived decline of traditional Christian values in Western societies. This concept suggests that when moral values are not grounded in an objective truth such as the truth believed to be revealed by God through Christianity, they become subject to shifting cultural trends, individual preferences, or societal whims. In this context, traditional Christian values can seem increasingly out of place in a society where relativism, secularism, and individualism are dominant. Here are the issues at hand within this framework. 1. Relativism and the loss of objective moral grounding. Relativism defined. Relativism is the idea that truth and moral standards are not absolute but rather depend on individual or cultural beliefs. In this view, there are no universally binding truths, only subjective or situational interpretations. Pope Benedict XVI's concern, the dictatorship of relativism, implies that when society moves away from objective truths, individuals become increasingly detached from a stable moral framework. As a result, traditional Christian values, which assert certain absolute truths about morality, the nature of humanity, and God's will, are seen as restrictive or outdated in a relativistic society. Impact on society. Without a foundation in objective truth, Western societies may struggle with moral coherence. Issues that were once governed by stable values, such as family, marriage, and human dignity, become points of negotiation rather than principles to uphold, which can lead to societal fragmentation and confusion around identity, purpose, and ethics. 2. Secularization and the decline of public religious influence. Shift away from religion. As societies become more secular, the influence of Christianity in public life decreases. This means that religious values are often seen as personal beliefs rather than essential parts of the public moral framework. Relativism reinforced by secularization. With the separation of church and state, religious influence in education, law, and public policy has diminished. The secular approach to governance places value on neutrality, which often results in relativistic policies that prioritize individual freedoms over shared moral values. This environment makes it difficult for traditional Christian values to hold sway on a societal level. Loss of a moral reference point. Christianity provided a sense of shared morality and a moral North Star. As secular values become more central, this shared reference point is diluted, contributing to the idea that moral values are more fluid and negotiable. 3. Rise of individualism and the subjective self. Individualism in Western culture. Western societies highly value individual rights and personal autonomy. This emphasis on the subjective self encourages people to determine their own moral framework, often in opposition to traditional religious norms. Subjective truth. Under the dictatorship of relativism, the concept of truth becomes subjective. People are more likely to define truth based on personal experience or preference rather than objective religious or moral standards. This often leads to the rejection of universal moral principles that Christianity upholds. Detachment from community and tradition. Christianity, especially within its historical context, emphasizes the importance of community, self-sacrifice, and shared purpose. With the rise of individualism, people may prioritize personal fulfillment over communal or religious obligations, weakening the sense of belonging and commitment to traditional values. 4. Pluralism and the erosion of cultural homogeneity. Multiculturalism and diversity. Western societies have become highly pluralistic, meaning that there are multiple belief systems and values coexisting within the same culture. This diversity can promote tolerance but also fosters a relativistic outlook where no single moral framework is seen as authoritative. Moral relativism as a response to pluralism. In order to coexist peacefully, societies often promote tolerance by relativizing moral truths, adopting a live and let live attitude. This mindset can result in a cultural shift away from values grounded in objective truth to ones that prioritize inclusivity, even if it means compromising on certain principles. Christianity as one voice among many. In a pluralistic society, Christianity is just one voice among many competing ideologies. Without a dominant cultural consensus around Christian values, relativism fills the gap, positioning all beliefs as equally valid, potentially diluting the unique moral claims of Christianity. 5. Technological and scientific progress challenging traditional beliefs. Scientific rationalism and empirical evidence. Advances in science and technology have changed how people understand reality, leading to a worldview that values empirical evidence over faith-based beliefs. This scientific mindset often conflicts with traditional religious views, particularly on issues like the origins of life, morality, and human purpose. Materialism as a new paradigm. As society becomes more reliant on technology and more materialistic, there is less room for spiritual or metaphysical considerations. The materialist paradigm can make people view religion as unnecessary or outdated, reinforcing relativistic views that prioritize worldly success over spiritual meaning. Moral autonomy in a technological world. With technology catering to individual needs and preferences, people are increasingly encouraged to define their own truths. This emphasis on autonomy can lead to a weakening of traditional religious authority, as individuals look to technology, rather than religious or moral traditions, for guidance. 6. Moral and ethical shifts driven by social movements. Liberal and progressive movements. Social movements focused on human rights, equality, and individual freedom often promote values that conflict with traditional Christian teachings on morality, gender, and family. These movements have contributed to societal shifts toward moral relativism, as values become less anchored in objective religious truth and more defined by social consensus. Influence of relativism in ethical debates. Social debates on issues like abortion, same-sex marriage, and gender identity often reveal a tension between traditional Christian values and relativistic perspectives that prioritize personal choice. For many, the right answer is no longer determined by religious teachings but by cultural attitudes that promote personal autonomy and subjective interpretations of morality. The dictatorship of political correctness. In some cases, relativism leads to a kind of social pressure or dictatorship where adherence to objective moral truths, particularly those rooted in Christianity, is viewed as intolerant or regressive. This can result in the marginalization of traditional Christian values in public discourse. 7. Consumerism and the distraction from spiritual fulfillment. Materialistic values over spiritual values. Consumerism promotes a mindset that values material success, consumption, and instant gratification. These values are often incompatible with Christian teachings on humility, self-sacrifice, and spiritual fulfillment. Loss of time and space for reflection. A consumer-driven culture leaves little room for contemplation, spiritual practice, or community-based worship. Constant engagement with media, entertainment, and material pursuits can distract people from religious commitments, reinforcing a relativistic view that prioritizes individual desires over spiritual truths. Christianity as countercultural. In a culture that emphasizes consumption and self-gratification, traditional Christian values are countercultural, often calling people to values like simplicity, sacrifice, and love for others. This makes Christianity seem out of touch with mainstream cultural values and reinforces the dominance of relativism. In summary, Pope Benedict XVI's warning about the dictatorship of relativism points to a culture where individual preference and social consensus have largely replaced objective truth as the foundation for moral values. In the West, this shift is evident in secularization, individualism, pluralism, scientific progress, and consumerism, all of which contribute to the diminishing influence of traditional Christian values. In a relativistic framework, Christianity's absolute claims about truth and morality are often viewed as restrictive or even oppressive, further marginalizing its role in modern society. For some, this loss of traditional values is deeply concerning, as it risks leading to moral incoherence and societal fragmentation. For others, the shift toward relativism represents a necessary evolution toward a more inclusive and progressive society. Either way, the decline of traditional Christian values in the West reflects broader cultural, social, and philosophical shifts that challenge the objective moral framework that Christianity historically provided.